if you haven't nailed your sleep, then none of the rest of it matters. Sleep is the gold mine.
Having a vision, I think, is important, but having a crystal ball is something completely different. All cliches are built in truth.
The results you're looking for are found in the work that you are avoiding.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Strength Connection podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kurkowski. I'm so grateful that you can join me today. So today I am with one of the strongest women in the world, no joke. Rebecca Rouse, the owner of Semper Stronger and national weightlifter, rejoins me on the show to dive deep into training, recovery, and her incredible success over the past year. So Rebecca is one of the first guests I had on the Strength Connection last year when she talked about her year of yes, where she said yes to any opportunity, every opportunity that came her way, regardless of how big or little impact it could have. And since that time, she's built a hugely successful coaching business, at the same time increasing her Olympic lifts by over 44 kilograms in 1 year. So Rebecca speaks on going all in on her training, how she manages to fit everything in each day, how recovery plays such a huge role now, and the mindset she has on meet days. She's one of the biggest inspirations out there. Seriously, Rebecca's truly one of the best. So with that, let's get to it. If you like this episode and you want to show the podcast some love, please give it a rating and review wherever you listen. And don't forget to subscribe. You can catch all new episodes dropped every single week. All right, thank you very much, guys. Now let's get on with the show.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm fueled up just by being in your presence, Rebecca. I've seen all the strength work that you're doing over the last year. It's a blast to have you back on. So appreciate you coming back on.
Thank you so much. Ready for round two. I'm excited to catch up.
Yeah, no doubt. So I said it was about a year ago since we connected on the podcast before, which you were just finished with one meet and then just saw all the crazy increases on pretty much every lift that you had in just 1 year. Fucking crazy. That's insane. Is that normal for people to do that much increase over like 1 year time?
That's a good question. And I don't think it is. I was actually reading specifically for Olympic weightlifting. I mean, I don't know outside of this sport. I haven't looked too much into like, what does a typical year look like? But I was looking specifically for Olympic weightlifting at one of the guys I follow, Catalyst Athletics. He's like one of the most renowned weightlifting coaches. And someone asked, he does a lot of Q&As on Instagram stories. And one of the questions was like, what is a typical, or what is like a good year over year increase in kilos? Obviously, it's all in kilos for weightlifting. So he said 7 kilos per lift per year is a good like to shoot for. And obviously that can only continue indefinitely, like that can't go on forever. So for where I'm at, like I've been strength training most of my life, and I was honestly surprised that I was able to increase as much as I did, given that I have been strength training for so long and I am where I am. So I was pleasantly surprised by that.
No doubt. Yeah. Have you talked with Greg at all before? No. Greg Everett?
I saw him at nationals because he had one or two athletes in my session. So I saw him, across the platform, but yeah, I've never spoken to him. No.
Yeah. I've been fortunate. I had him on the podcast a couple of times. His book Tough is, I said, for coaches, is one of the best books that kind of takes the ethereal work, like the philosophy of toughness and mentality, but really puts it into practical application as good as anybody. So yeah, if you're going to follow anybody in Olympic lifting, Greg's probably the one to do it.
He is the one. I like his straightforward just mentality, and he's he's a straight shooter. I respect him a lot.
Yeah, I heard of him because I think I followed Maddie Rogers, who's like one of the tops in there, and then saw him working with her and talk about another strong ass person in this world. That's crazy. So 7 kilo, that seems pretty aggressive, like for like an advanced type lifter. Usually you get like the beginner base gains on it. That's pretty interesting that you can still increase that. I mean, like I said, it's like you said, it's not probably indefinite, but definitely from year to year. Yeah, that's still a pretty big jump. Was that what you were planning on when you got into this last meet, or was it kind of almost a pleasant surprise going in?
I was planning on doing better than I had before. That's kind of been my goal for this whole year since I moved here, because I was dabbling in weightlifting from 2018 until a year ago. And then when I moved here to Texas, and I met my coach, that's when I really went all in. So I didn't ever really have specific goals or numbers that I wanted to hit. And then once I got really serious about it, I was like, I want to hit a 200 kilo total. That's like my big goal, which is what I hit it on the nose at my meet in October. But my goal throughout the year has just been to increase my total meet over meet. And I did that. So, but my last meet was, I was really happy with my performance on that one. And hopefully that'll just propel me into a successful 2023 and going to nationals the second time. So
yeah. No doubt. So yeah, like I think that's, a good kind of kickoff point that I wanted to dive into with Rebecca. Like last year when we talked, you're kind of like just going all in on the Olympic lifting. As you said, kind of dabbled in it a bit before. I knew you from the StrongFirst community and the work that you've done with kettlebell training that you've done. What, if you can remind me again, like what was it about the Olympic lifting that you wanted to go all in this one kind of modality?
It was really my coach that I met, and I met him just by being connected through a family friend. It was very happenstance. And because I had just moved to a new city, new state, I didn't know that many people here. And I had one family friend who I've known for almost my whole life, pretty much. And he was training under this guy, Richard Fleming. And before I had found a gym or built my home gym or anything like that, I had no idea what direction I was going to go with my fitness. I was like, I have a completely clean slate, new chapter, new city. What am I going to do? And I had thought about maybe going into CrossFit, maybe continuing with weightlifting or getting back into weightlifting, or maybe just doing my own thing in my garage and training on my own and writing my own programming. And he just swooped in, my friend David, and he was like, hey, come with me to train with my coach. You can meet him. He's really cool. He's trained a couple of Olympians. And so I went, I think it was a Tuesday or Thursday afternoon. I met him and he was pleasantly surprised, I guess, with my performance and my first time lifting. And he said, I have a lot of potential. And then I think the next day I came back the following week and he said, do you want to go all in? Like, do you want to take this really seriously? Because I think we could go places. And I had not really thought of it in that way. I hadn't considered, making this like a full-time job almost as training goes, but I really enjoyed his coaching style. He's kind of like Greg, I don't know him personally, Greg, but I imagine similar style in terms of just being very direct, very straightforward. All about lifting, and nothing else matters when we're in that training session. It's just the weights and us. There's no music. There's no there's sometimes side conversations, but it's just very we're lifting. It's this old dusty garage and all they do is lift heavy weights. And I was all about it. And so the further I got along in that journey with him, the more I just fell in love with it and realized I wanted to commit and go all in. So that's kind of how that happened. And why I did that.
That's so cool. Is that an environment you were kind of comfortable in already? Was kind of almost like the underground base weights, not really like the pop type gym stuff before?
It's actually completely the antithesis of what I was used to, because I worked at Equinox for 6.5 years. Okay. So Equinox is like the literal opposite. It's high end, it's luxury, it's clean, it's 24/7 maintenance staff, it's cold towels in the fridge, it's pristine locker rooms, it's everything. And here it's complete. It's a 2-car garage. It's been there. They've been training there since 1974 in this same place. With athletes have come and gone over the years and over the decades. And the guy who owns the house, he was the founder of the Barbell Club, and they have all these records from decades of athletes training. It starts on like a green chalkboard, from like the 90s chalkboards with like actual chalk.
Yeah.
And those are in
awesome.
pounds. Yeah, because they used to do it in pounds, and then they switched to kilos at some point, and then it moves over to the other wall where there's a whiteboard and dry erase records and just decades and decades of athlete history in there, and newspaper clippings and articles from literally for figures. It's super cool.
That's so much fun. It reminds me, when I lived in Boston, I had 2 different gyms. One was like a commercial based gym. It was like a Wellbridge, very nice membership based spot. But there was another spot that my friend introduced me to, which was like an underground barbell based gym where one plate on each side was technically stripping the bar. Like they always had, 2 plates on it. Like that's how you began everything. And just the difference of, you can even feel just stepping into it, just naturally your mindset was just into a different realm. It's like, okay, like this is my strength world right here. All right, I was a baseball player. I was going into conditioning. It was a little bit more opening, but it's so crazy how your environment can take over and just kind of put you into that realm so fast, right?
100%. It's as soon as I walk in there, like nothing else matters. It's just my coach, myself, sometimes my other teammates that train there too, and the weights, and that's it. And we focus and get the work done. Yeah.
Did you know anyone else like that went like deep and kind of one-dimensional in the Olympic lifting before, or was it just something that you were just kind of like, all right, I need a new challenge?
More the latter. I guess the first coach that introduced me to it when I was training at Equinox, he was one of the trainers. I was a manager. He was a trainer on my team, and I ended up hiring him to coach me on weightlifting. So he was pretty much single focus on weightlifting. He's also a competitor as well as a coach. But aside from him, not really. It was pretty new to me.
Okay. With so getting into this now, like if you go back into a year and look at this time, was there anything that really kind of stood out as something like, oh shit, like I didn't know, was there like an aha moment at all, like during this time? I'm sure there was quite a few like in there over time, but now like committing 100% to just this one focus. Was training over this last year, was it kind of what you expected, or were there definitely like times when you're like, oh shit, like breakthroughs popped up? Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I had a few of those moments. I think early on, just the intent, like the toll that it takes on the body, for sure. It's a brutal sport. It's a lot of heavy lifting. It's a lot of volume. The training sessions are long, the rest periods are long, the weights are heavy. And so just the training taking as much time as it did, like, I used to be very not minimalist. Like I enjoy a good long workout, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, but like most of my workouts are 2 hours. That's probably a good average. And so
is that from like soup to nuts, like warm up all the way through?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, but a good average is about 2 hours. And so that plus the recovery time, I can't afford to sleep less than 8 hours. Like I'm in bed 9 hours a lot of nights and asleep for 8.5. So it became very time consuming. So knowing my business goals and being an entrepreneur, and then adding in basically another full-time job when it comes to the amount of time I spend on my training, my recovery and sleep, and all the other things I do for recovery, and then eating. Oh my goodness. Yeah. The amount of the hunger and the calories that I have to consume to sustain this, it's a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of planning and preparation. So that was kind of a big one that came early on and hit me hard, but I've been able to sustain it the best that I can. Some weeks better than others, but that was a big one. And
that's probably something you can't like teach it's almost like experience, right? It's like you have to just dive in and see how you manage your time, from there. And I'm sure sacrifices pop up in different other aspects. And like the hunger, I've heard that from Olympic lifters before. It's like, it's a different type of fuel that you feel like you need all of a sudden after a while.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So, okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. The recovery side, I've seen some of the recovery work that you're doing. I'm assuming that's been a pretty big role in this whole process as well.
It definitely has. Like I said, sleep is number one. I get that question a lot in my DMs. Like, what do you do for recovery? And I'm like, if you haven't nailed your sleep, then none of the rest of it matters. Like the rest of them are just band-aids, but sleep is the gold mine, honestly. Good quality sleep. And so there's a lot of things that go into me getting that good quality sleep. So, keeping my caffeine intake until, before noon. I don't drink caffeine after noon. So, because it will interfere with my sleep. I have a really consistent bedtime and wake time. So I try to keep it within 30 minutes. Obviously life happens sometimes, but 90% of the time I'm in bed between 9:30 and 10. And then I wake up whenever my body wakes me up, usually sometime between 6 and 7. So unless I have to be somewhere early, which most days I don't, thankfully, I'm very consistently getting those 8+ hours of sleep. And then my wind down routine before sleep. So I'm dimming the lights. I have like just amber lights, nothing bright, no bright overhead lights. I'm trying to stay off my phone. Sometimes I'll take a hot Epsom salt bath and just, read or journal or something like that. So I can really get myself into a relaxed state before going into bed, and making sure all the thoughts from the day and my to-do list is like written here on my whiteboard beside me. And I can just get the thoughts out of my brain and focus on winding down. So those are some of the things.
Has that like process of recovery, has that elevated over this past year? It's like, cause you were, kind of a gifted athlete for a while, like, in your life, and you've built a really good foundation over time. Was these things that already you kind of had in place, or did you start adding some of these things as you realized like, holy shit, the volume that I'm getting in here, the intensity of these things, I need to change this up quite a bit?
The latter. I've always known about the importance of sleep, but I've never paid this much attention to getting that sleep quality and nailing it as much as I can. I use a Whoop too to track my recovery.
Okay.
So I'm trying to always get the green recovery scores. I take it all with a grain of salt, but it is important. It is good data. But yeah, I definitely leveled up my attention to recovery and quality of sleep immensely over the last year, just because I feel a huge difference in my my mental clarity and sharpness, as well as the physical, like how my body feels. My muscles, my joints, everything, when I do sleep well and enough versus when I don't.
Right. The topic of recovery is so interesting. I'm fascinated that you get a lot of DMs and kind of talk about that. And For me, it's almost like, yeah, it's good to talk about recovery, but you got to freaking train hard first. You know, it's
Yes.
it's kind of like talking about cheat meals before you like get down into like your nutrition and actually put some focus down into. And I like talking about recovery like with you because I've seen the work that you're putting into, but it almost seems like a lot of people, it's like we're talking about an ice bath or a foam roller, or like recovery based work before you're actually getting the training piece down. I've talked about that with my clientele. They're probably sick of me talking about it, but it's like, get your training in first, like be tired by the end of the day. Then we can start talking about, you know, dimming the lights and taking a hot shower and getting in your breath work before, you know, before you go to sleep. It's like kind of put in the work first, right?
100%. I totally agree. That's a good point, actually.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So has one lift kind of been more of your favorite over this time versus another? Like, have you got more in love with like the clean and jerk or the snatch? Have it's kind of been like, both are kind of like, you know, siblings or?
Yeah, ask me tomorrow. I'll give you a different answer. It changes very frequently. I think that's probably consistent across weightlifters. I imagine I've never really done my research on this, but for me, it changes all the time. Like some days I'll be really frustrated by one thing in the snatch, or I'll have a really bad day, and sometimes then I'll have a breakthrough with it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love snatches now, and then vice versa. So it really depends. I like them both. Obviously, if I didn't love both lifts and love the sport, I wouldn't do it and commit so much of myself to it. But I do enjoy both lifts.
Yeah. Is the rigidity of your training and structure, is that something that feels just good, like good for you of just keeping, because it seems like, I mean, you've got a very set plan every day you're going in for training, kind of do the same thing with your entrepreneurship and your business, your recovery and stuff like that. Like, is it easy for you to follow like a plan like that? Or do you do any like intuition or like switch it up at all? Like when you're like, I need to take a break from this rigidity?
I love it. Honestly, I'm very much a creature of habit. I love structure. I thrive off of it. And so for me, it just, all of the things that are going on in my life right now, it fits perfectly. And I feel like it all just kind of fell into place exactly as it should have, because, you know, I started my business in 2020. So the first year I'm just floundering, trying to figure it all out. And then 2021, I really feel like I started to kind of get a hold of things. And around that same time, you know, midway through 2021, that's when I met my coach. And so the entrepreneurial journey and my coach, or my weightlifting journey with my coach, and everything has just kind of been worked in tandem, and I've grown in both as an athlete and a business owner. And so just having the structure from both fit together so perfectly has allowed me, it has enabled me to just have this really solid structure in my life. And then because I can make my own schedule as I need to, being an entrepreneur, having that freedom and flexibility to do that has allowed me to fit in all the things whenever I can, whenever it makes most sense with my schedule, and not having to, you know, show up to clock into work at 9 a.m. or anything like that. Like it's all on me, which, being a very self-directed and driven person, has worked beautifully for me.
Yeah. Do you have clients? I mean, are you working with people who have like 9 to 5s and are trying to kind of figure out like that schedule of when to get into and kind of have that rigidity? Like, how do you help people like that don't have the freedom, I guess, in their schedule that we do? Because I'm in a similar boat as you. I kind of work when I want. I have a structure of how I keep things. Otherwise, you know, you have no plan on it, but you can kind of jump into different training and stuff like that. And I realized over this past year of kind of being a solo entrepreneur, not everybody has that same type of rigidity down. Like, how do you work with a lot of people who are more like 9 to 5, or are they more kind of open, more entrepreneurial type people?
I have a few of each. I have a couple clients. I mean, honestly, I'm not training as much as I used to, training clients as much as I used to, because I'm focusing a lot more right now on growing the business, like enterprise, versus growing my own personal clientele. I do still train some clients, and I think I always will, just because I think it's important to keep that sharp. But in terms of the clients that I am training, for the ones that I train in person, one-on-one, they do have 9 to 5s, I think all of them. And then there are people that I'm doing online where I'm just mostly doing their programming and then calls. So it hasn't been too much of like an issue in that sense, because most of the people that I work with, I'm just writing their program, giving it to them via the app, and then they're on their own and we check in.
Yeah. Was it challenging for you to kind of step away from working with clients as much and focusing more on the business?
No, I think it happened naturally. Honestly, it's like as the business has grown and we're now in a place where we're hiring coaches. So it was almost by necessity because I can't be the business owner, operator, and train a full load of clients at the same time. And be an athlete. Like there's just not enough hours in the day for all of those things. So it just happened kind of in tandem, really. We're hiring coaches, and I have a team now, a small team of people that work with me on the business. And so managing my team members and my clients and then growing the business at the same time, it really necessitated me to take a step back from the one-on-one coaching as much.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting though, because I talked with Luka Hocevar last week. He's got, multiple different things he's doing in his business, but still gets into the trenches with people, still working with some. And he's like, it's that sharpening the saw type feel of it. And I think especially with the online world now, everybody, especially fitness coaches, we want to get into this entrepreneurial type world. It's like still getting in and keeping your hands dirty with people. Like it keeps you so sharp. I know I still do that with a few clients, and it just keeps you just on your game with everything else. I think that's it's such an important point, I think, for a lot of coaches to never fully give that up. You kind of said like, probably will always do it in some sense.
Absolutely. I mean, it was my first love. My first job was personal training. And so I think that's always going to be part of who I am and ingrained in, at the foundation of the business. The business started as just me being the only coach, and I just trained my clients, and that was it. And now it's growing into something much bigger. But at the heart of it is just, a passion for helping people move better, look better, feel better, and be stronger. And so I think it's important as the business owner that I lead by example. And so that any coach comes on board knows that I'm also doing what they're doing. And I would never ask somebody to do something that I wouldn't myself do.
Yeah. So you started this in 2020 was Semper Stronger?
Yeah, we launched September of 2020.
Okay. And now, I've seen the growth that you've had from there, which is freaking awesome now going into a team and stuff like this. Like, was this the vision that you had like from the beginning, or did this just kind of all of a sudden just keep rolling?
The latter. I had no long-term vision, really. It was honestly like out of need, because when Equinox shut down and I didn't know if I was going to get my job back, or if so, when, it was like, well, I'm not going to wait around and wait for somebody to tell me I can work again. Like that's just not who I am. So my husband and I were stuck at home during COVID and thinking about what we could do. And so we started this. The brand really, the brand name comes from just being a Marine Corps family, being active duty, and the Marine Corps being very near and dear part of our lives. But it was just like, it was a way for me to train clients, to have this platform. At the beginning, we got the app and I wrote some programs, and then I started getting some clients, and that was that. And I didn't realize, or I didn't have like a vision past that. It was just a platform on which I could host my client programs, and that was it. And then over time, I think after, 6 months of doing that, it was like, well, there's only one of me, and I don't have an indefinite number of hours in the day or, energy to give. So maybe we need to grow this past just me being the only person working in this business. And so the next thing we did was launch the membership. And so that was a way to get some passive income. And so I would write programs and workouts and things, and we could sell them to people. And so whether we had 4 members or 400 members, it was just passive income for us.
Right.
So that was kind of our next step in the business growth. And then after that, almost this entire year of 2022 has been focused on growing our platform to a point where we can now invite other coaches to train their clients and utilize the platform that we've spent 2 years building in terms of our exercise library. We've made all of our own videos. We have over 1,000 now. Yeah. We've got our membership. We've got resources that are available to our clients and members. And so we've just grown it and not really known where it would take us. But now we're at a point where we have a brand, we have a message that's very powerful, and people want to be a part of it. And so we just 2 weeks ago launched our applications to bring coaches on as contractors and utilize our platform. And within 48 hours, we had over 50 people interested, which was super cool.
Wow, man. Yeah. What an exciting step there. Cause I remember because the last time when we spoke, I think you were at, and I just see you from your Instagram brand and stuff, was 25 or 30,000 followers, now went over 100K on there. So triple X that over a year. Have you kind of ever stepped back, be like, oh my gosh, how is this is resonating so much with people? This is freaking crazy. I like the message that you said there about just kind of doing it step by step on there. Cause I think oftentimes we can get so stuck into having a vision, I think, is important, but having a crystal ball is something completely different, and it's a lot of people think a vision means oh, you need to have this crystal ball out there, when in reality, it's no, you know what you do, you know what you love, work on it every day keep your mind open to these different, thoughts and different ideas on there. And last time when we spoke, you said it was like a yes year, like you're just saying yes to everything and just open up those different opportunities from there. I think that's such a great message to tell people of just work on it every day. It's probably the same thing like when you get into your lifting. It's like if you expect, to have 100-kilo day, when you're not really ready for it, probably not going to happen. It's like just work on it each day.
Yeah, that's so funny you say that. I remember that specifically I'm talking to you about like saying yes to everything. And over the last year, it has been that like I have said yes to just about every opportunity, every podcast invitation, every person that wants to ask me a question or whatever, answering every DM. And to come full circle, like I've realized like in doing that, I didn't have any boundaries. So I don't think I did it wrong, but I think saying yes to everything has led me to a place where I've learned so much about what opportunities are out there. And now I'm at a place where like, I have to say no to some things.
Right.
But it wasn't, I'm only here because I said yes to literally everything. And now where I can't say yes, it doesn't make financial sense, business sense, personal energy sense. Like I have better boundaries now and I understand now what opportunities are worth pursuing and who just wants a free handout. I get a ton of DMs every single day of people asking me fitness questions and business questions, and they want all the free information. And I used to answer every single person. And now I put boundaries. I'm like, if you would like to spend an hour with me, I charge for that now. Like I have built this and I know what I know because I've spent the time and money and energy learning it. And so if someone wants that from me, I'm now at a place where I know my worth and I'm able to charge for that. And most people are like, oh, never mind. And so It feels really good to be in a place where after having said yes to everything and giving away so much of myself and my time and my energy, now I'm not doing that as much. And I know what opportunities are worth pursuing. And I can also have those boundaries.
Yeah. That's such an important message because so many people can look at you and look at the brand that you built and just see the success that you are right now, in December 2022, not seeing like, for a couple years, it's answering every DM, getting in there. And I think a lot of times, like you get these messages out from people who have found success on it and being like, your time is valuable. Don't give up your time and stuff like that. It's like, well, you know what? At the beginning as you're building this up, like give as freely as possible, like to have conversations with people, like dive into it 100% full force. I think this message of like incremental steps and progress on things, like I think that's important. But then again, I'm like, well, maybe if you've never done this before, it's best to dive head first into the deep end and actually go like deep into it. Like, try and like train as hard as you possibly can. Like, don't start with 2 days, like go 7 days a week. See if you can work that. That might actually work really well for you. Then you dial it back and then you realize, okay, this works really well for me. And it's like, I think that's such a thing that we don't hear as much. It's like, people who are just starting out with stuff, especially young coaches, it's like, like you need to build yourself up there. Like I look back at the first couple of years that I coached and I was at a place, I started at 5 a.m. in the morning. I think I left at 10 o'clock at night. Like I was just there, like answered every question, anybody that needed help on anything. I was just out there, whether they were paying me or not. I didn't even think about it at that time. And then realized like, oh shit, like 3 years down the line, all right, now I have a full book. Now I can't take everybody that asks a question, but you got to kind of earn yourself into that.
1,000%. You got to earn your stripes. And, most people aren't willing to grind that hard. And so, and that's okay. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Being the top whatever percent isn't for everybody. Like some people are okay with doing the minimum or being average. And like, that's fine. Power to those people. That's not me. And so like everyone's got their thing. And if you want to reap the like serious benefits, you have to be willing to put in the work. You got to be willing to do the 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. and do it again tomorrow and make some sacrifices. And so it's just about asking ourselves, like, what are we willing to give up? Where do we want to go? And what is it going to take to get there? And so I've learned a lot about myself and about the business world and about, building something great and what that really takes and looks like over the last year. And I feel like I'm still just getting started, but I feel like I've made a lot of good progress too, in that sense over the last year of just knowing, what it takes. And two, also just having mentors who are willing to help me and just give me that free advice, like people I really know and trust, and knowing that I'm going to pay that forward to somebody else. But it's knowing, where do we draw that line? Who's just trying to take advantage of me versus who's really going to take what I say and like go do something great with it.
Yeah. It's that's powerful. How do you have mentors in your entrepreneurial space as well? I know you have your coach that you work with training, which we like know is so valuable. I mean, the best coaches in the world that I know have other coaches and stuff. Do you have a mentorship group that you work with? Do you have specific people or?
I do. I have I guess call it a mastermind group of entrepreneurs that I meet with every month. We actually have our meeting tonight. People I'm used to meet with in person, and then the group kind of dissolved, and then we kind of came back together over time. And so we meet every month, and it's just entrepreneurs from all different fields, but we support each other. We come with questions prepared, give updates, and then just how can we help each other grow and get better. So that's a group I've been a part of for a couple of years. And then just some other really successful entrepreneurs in, not necessarily in fitness, some in fitness, but in other businesses, some in like the former military that have then left the military and grown really successful businesses. So I have some people that I can bounce ideas off of and ask questions to. So I'm really grateful for.
Yeah. So just to get at some of the people that have helped me so much are people outside of the fitness business, just from that different perspective, in there, like they just give you a different tidbit because everything can kind of relate so much from one thing to another. So to get out of your own zones, I think is so powerful.
Definitely. Yeah.
So with your training that you I wanted to ask you about mindset, and it's almost like, I don't hate that word, but I think it just gets so misinterpreted in so much of what we do in kind of the strength and conditioning world. But with your physical training, with the goals that you have and stuff, like obviously I'm sure mental performance is a big part of that. Like, do you have specific practices that you do for your own personal mindset to put you in the right frame of mind? Or is it more, is it more like cues that you kind of, focus on to kind of put yourself, in the outcome that you want? Kind of how does that side of it work for you?
I think it's different for training versus meet day. So for me, like the training, it has been a challenge as my business has grown. I've gotten busier to separate the two, like to leave my workday behind and my training most of the time is in the middle to late afternoon, which is not my preferred time, but it's what's best for my coach and the rest of the people on the team. So we kind of make a compromise there and meet around 3 or 4. But it's tough sometimes. Like just the energy from the day like just drains me. The amount of like myself that I'm putting into my business and managing my team and everything. So sometimes I like the physiological toll that takes on the body is undeniable. So sometimes I try to compensate with just the mental toughness and the discipline of just showing up. And sometimes it's good enough and I'll still have a great session, even if I've had a long work day. Sometimes it's not. And it's just like so obvious that like the physiological stress or the stress response that happens physiologically, just the fatigue and like just feeling the brain fog and everything. Like there's nothing I can do about the physiological side, but the psychological side, I can leverage that. So obviously I'm big on discipline. I preach it all the time. And so there are certainly days when I don't feel like going to training or I feel like I can't push myself. And as soon as I walk through those doors, it's like, I just have to turn everything else off and show up the best that I can. And some days that looks different than others, but my coach is very in tune with me. He can read my energy. He can see my body language. And if I'm like sitting with my, tail between my legs, he can tell like, okay, maybe today's not the day to push her super hard and let's just go a little bit lighter, but more reps or vice versa. So it's usually obvious to him within 30 seconds of me walking in the door, like if I'm quote bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, as he says, if I'm a little lower energy. So I'm grateful to have a coach who's so in tune with me that way. But meet day is like a whole other thing. I'm a total nervous wreck by nature. Like I have very high performance anxiety. I'm very type A perfectionist. So it's an ongoing battle. And I've talked to a lot of other weightlifters or competitors of any kind, jiu-jitsu, it doesn't really matter. Like I think it's kind of hard to just get rid of that. You can't just turn it off. If you get nervous, then you get nervous. And so it's not really necessarily about trying to turn it off, but how to manage it and overcome it. And so I found in competition that breath work has helped me a ton. So I'll be sitting waiting to get on the platform and my resting heart rate is 150 because I'm so anxious, but doing certain types of breathing techniques like the long, slow exhale, I can bring that heart rate down to not so far that I'm parasympathetic, but enough to where I can still like perform and not be trembling and shaking. And so I think breath work has been really helpful too in learning how to control my physiology.
Oh yeah. I mean, Mite, I'm sure, regardless of who you are and how, successful you've been or how proficient you are, there's those nerves, that pop up there, all the time. Does it get better as the meet goes on? Like obviously probably like the first lift. It's like, all right, just get that first one under the
Yep.
belt.
Yeah, first one is tough, probably the toughest. And then because for weightlifting, you get 3 attempts at the
Yep.
snatch and 3 attempts at the clean and jerk. So you definitely want making your first lift is huge, because at least you're good on the snatch. And most, I can't speak for everybody, for most people that I know, the snatch is a little bit like, people feel less confident in the snatch. Like clean and jerk is way just more brute strength based, whereas the snatch is a little bit more timing and technique based because of the way that you catch the barbell. And so making that first snatch is like, all right, we can breathe now. The second and third are just gravy if we make them, but at least we're gonna have a good shot at totaling. So because if you scratch, if you miss all 3 snatches, then you can't total. So
right. Well, the clean and jerk, probably you get a slight mental break because it's broke up in the 2 different lifts. You can kind of, when you get into that clean position, I'm sure. But the snatch, everything is so deep and technical. My friend Danny Casey, who owns New York Weightlifting Academy and talks about that all the time, of the precision, control, and just posture on it, and just can go over those over and over again. But the snatch, like everything has to align all at that once. It's funny too, Rebecca, like I've talked about this with SFGs going in about like the snatch test. And it's like, I've done 1.5 million snatch tests over, a decade plus, but still every time you go in and it's on the clock, there's that like nerves right off the bat. It's like, all right, I know this is going to suck. I know I can get this done. But as soon as like that first snatch or 2 goes up, it's like, oh, we're snatching. I know how to do this. It's like, then the nerves just kind of drop down, but still, no matter what, it's like, you can do it over and over again. It's still like that little bit of that jitter just pops up in there.
Absolutely. I know that feeling well.
With your training, like when you get into this, are you a journaler with it? Like, do you do like intentions of what you're trying to aim for like the day? Like, do you reflect on it? Like, do you break it down that way? Or is it more just kind of like, all right, you have like your mantras in your mind that you kind of go over?
I do journal, not specifically about like weightlifting or training. I don't journal as often as I would like. It's something I've committed to myself that I would get more consistent with, and I just never have, but I do occasionally. But I do write down at every single training session, since I pretty much a month after starting to work with my coach. So it's been over a year now. I write down the date, the time that I train, where I'm training, if it's somewhere different, because sometimes I'll travel and train somewhere else. I record my weight usually twice a week. I'll record my body weight, track it over time. I record my whoop percent, my recovery score according to my whoop. And then like my general feelings, if I'm high energy, if I'm low energy, if I'm sore, if something doesn't, like if I'm in pain, whatever, like I'll just jot down some notes. So I have that from every single training session. And then I write down what I'm actually doing for my workouts, my working sets, and the weights that I'm doing for each of the lifts and accessories. So I have a lot of data on that, but in terms of like my own mindset, not a ton. Probably something I could add to my journal that I already do in my sessions is just, what is my mindset generally going into it or afterwards?
Yeah, it is. Well, journaling's funny because it's like, it's kind of like meditation. Everybody's like, oh, I should do it more, right? And stuff. If it speaks to you, then it works. I think that's actually a Greg Everett thing that he talks about when he has his athletes journal, is like just write down like just the first few things are the exact same every time, like the weight or the time of it. And then like one thing that went well. Then after that, like it kind of opens up your mind. So it's like just kind of like your warm up of just getting into it. So, cause I think the same thing, like I've done journaling practices of 3 pages stream of consciousness of really diving into it. And that's when I'm getting into a lot more writing type work. But for like training practices, like, just whatever's in your head, just if you keep it just consistent of a few things, it works well. But like anything, it seems like you can also probably overanalyze it, quite a bit of think, oh, I need to do my mindset work. That's where I think the mindset side of stuff does get a little bit misinterpreted by a lot of people. Like, oh, I need to do this, where I think I found that if you have an intention, you have like the right mind, and then go into your training practice with that, it's probably all going to work out the best way possible. Like oftentimes in mindset, I think we look for these breakthroughs all the time. Like we're going to have this ultimate clarity that's going on. It's kind of like training. Like if every time you go into the gym, you think you're going to increase linearly in your progressions of going over, it's like, you're going to You can do that for maybe like 2 days, and then all of a sudden you're going to hit that bump.
Yeah. And then similarly to like that same concept is people are looking for like the perfect conditions. They're looking for they want to have the right mindset. They want to have the perfect training gear and everything. It's like, none of that matters unless you have like a good training plan and if you're ready to take action, because you can do all the preparation in the world and have the perfect mindset, but if you're not going to actually execute, then none of it matters. And so I think more people are often focusing on the wrong things, and they would just do better to just take action, do the training, show up for the workout, do the work, and then figure the rest out later. The rest is details. But the right mindset isn't going to do you any good if you're not doing the work.
It's so powerful. Like it's like last year, I remember when I started my new business, I was deep on the intuitive side of training. Like I was working with Brett with Iron Cardio. There's a lot of intuition based on that. And there's still great power to that. But I think I made a huge mistake of like everybody that I started talking to, like right off the bat, we were going right into an intuitive approach on it, when it's like, okay, it's like, I think it's like anything. It's like, you need to earn your way almost into being intuitive, like intuitive eating, flexible dieting, like all this type of stuff. It's like, yeah, they're good concepts, but as you just said, it's like, if you just go in and execute a plan, it could even be a really shitty plan, but if you go in and execute it, like, I mean, that's the discipline equals freedom. That's from Jocko. And I know you and Jocko are very close with all the work that you do. Like that concept, it's very easy to deflect a lot of things and go deep into, oh, I need to have this down, or, oh, I'm really working on this. And it's actually more of just a disguise to not do anything and not actually execute a plan.
Yes, exactly. And I've had clients that are like, I'm going to get the perfect lifting gear and I'm going to buy a textbook so I can educate myself. And I'm like, that's what I'm here for. Like I got the education so that I can help you and create a plan. You just need to execute the plan. You just got to do the work. Yeah. But yeah, people will delay anything or what's the quote that I love? It's like the results you're looking for are found in the work that you are avoiding or something like
100%,
that. 100%. Yeah. And it's so true. It's just, yeah, even a bad plan is better than no plan. So just start somewhere. And then at best you succeed. And at worst you have data that you can work off of to pivot and change course and try something different.
Exactly.
But taking action is always going to be better than not.
Yeah. This is so it's I was just in a mastermind and they were talking about like attachment theory and the reasons why we do things, and you go to different fears, and it could be from, you know, your childhood type stuff and all this stuff. And everybody on this call was so propped up and so excited about it. Oh my God, I get this. And then I realized like, oh yeah, this is just giving you like an energy of like, when we start exploring these things and realizing why we're not doing it, it actually gives you an energy that almost makes you feel like you're doing something about it. Like if you're like exploring it and you know the reason why, oh, I'm trying to find this. It's like, yeah, still go execute, go do something about it. Yeah.
It's and like when you go to a certification or something like a StrongFirst or any certification, you like take all this information, you're around all these like-minded people that are so fired up and everyone's like, just wants to go home and teach. Every client's getting this 100%. New information. And then, you know, in a couple months, a month of what later, it's like how many people who still have that fire and are still practicing, or was it just short-lived and just, you know, it was cool at the time.
Yeah, no doubt. And honestly, Rebecca, like you're one of the people that I followed who I'm like, oh shit, she's fucking getting after it today. Like maybe I can get after it a little bit more, honestly. It's like, you know, being like in business, like that the mindset and the energy that you can put into your business, like that's real energy. Like you don't have that 100% for your training sometimes, you know. That's why like I personally, like I have to really get my training in the morning time. Otherwise it's a decent shot down. If I had a coach here kind of working with you, it might be a little bit different. So I understand where you're coming from on that, but it's like still just go in and just execute it. You know, it's like, it's such a cliche based term on it, but all cliches are built in truth. It's like, if you just go in and you execute, and I could say that for anybody, beginners, intermediates, advanced, whatever it is, it's like, just go in and continuously execute that plan. And you're going to be a lot farther down the line.
Yep, absolutely. And I can say that too for my business. Like there were the first year, especially, I had so much fear and I was afraid to do anything because I didn't want to make a mistake. And so therefore I just about it, planned, researched, talked to Joel about it, like did anything but doing it. And then a year later, it was like, okay, we need to take some action and we're going to make some mistakes. And once I became at peace with that, and I was very like accepting of the fact that there will be mistakes and that's how we learn, everything skyrocketed from there. And so now I no longer fear, or not nearly as much, like fear the mistakes. And I know like taking action is, and sometimes messy action is better, but I wouldn't be where I am today in training or business if I didn't just go all in and accept that there would be errors, there would be wrong turns, but we always, as long as you just learn from them, then that's the most important thing.
What was that fear of? Was it just something brand new that you've never done before? So kind of like almost the, maybe not imposter syndrome, but it's almost like, was it just kind of a natural fear of like, can I do this? Like, am I capable of doing this?
100%. And I still have some imposter syndrome. It's gotten better over time, but I still do face it. And I think just a lot of self-doubt, being a first timer. There's so many other people doing the same thing. Why should anyone care what I have to say? Or why would anybody want to follow or join or whatever? And like, do I have what it takes to be successful? And I look at all the people, and I'm so fortunate to have an incredible network, including people like Jocko and a lot of people like in his circle, and to see what they've accomplished. Like, I'm like, if they can do it, and I'm learning from them and I'm inspired by them, and I just take their teachings and apply them to my own life. Like, there's no way I'll fail unless I quit. And it's not that I'm trying to be them or do exactly what they've done, but just taking those principles that they teach and following the example that they've set forth and integrating them and applying them to my own life.
Yeah. Is there ever at all like a fear, like since you've developed like this brand and this success right now, is it almost like a fear of like, how big can this actually get?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that there's always, at first it was like, can we even get it off the ground? And then it was like, okay, we got it off the ground, but now can we even grow it? And so it's always something. It's like, what's next? But at this point, it's like, I do have fears of, will I be able to sustain the growth that we're having, and where I hope, I'm forecasting that we're going, plus being a full-time athlete competing at a national level. And we're working on some other pretty exciting things too that I'm not sharing yet, but it's a lot of time. But it's like, I go to, at least for right now, this has been the case for a long time. Like, I'm working from sun up to sundown and past, and go to bed exhausted, but so fulfilled by everything I'm doing. I can't wait to wake up and do it again the next day. And if I'm feeling that, and my body's feeling good, and I'm able to, take good care of my body and be able to train for a long time, then I have no problems with it.
Yeah.
As long as I'm loving it and continuing to be successful, I feel like I'm in a good spot.
No doubt. It's awesome. Well, it's funny because there's a fear of failure that everybody talks about, but there's also almost a fear of how absolutely successful can you possibly be, like that full capability, like that when those self-limiting beliefs start to break down from there. It's an exciting thing, but also it's like, oh shit, like this is a whole new just door that just opened up into Willy Wonka's factory here. And it's like, this is freaking huge from there. So, that's freaking awesome. Rebecca, it has been a blast having you back on and connecting. You have been such an inspiration to me and so many others. Like, I see the work that you're putting into everything that you're doing for Semper Stronger, for your brand, and then all the, the athletic achievements that you're doing. I think it's just freaking awesome. So I really appreciate you taking the time again.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you having me on. It's always great to chat with you and hear what you're up to, and just connect and spread the good word about strength and growth.
No doubt. We'll have to do it again. So if people want to follow you, check out more of your work, what's the best places that they can go?
Instagram, at Rebecca.Rouse. And then my brand is at Semper Stronger, and my website, semperstronger.com.
Love it. Perfect. Awesome, Rebecca. Thank you so much, listeners. Go follow Rebecca. I'll talk to you guys on the next one. Peace.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some great value here. And if you like this episode, please drop a comment and leave us a 5-star rating and review. It does more to build the show than you can imagine. And do not forget to check out and join the Strength Connection Facebook group. In this group, I share the biggest takeaways and lessons from these amazing conversations, as well as training and strength tips for pursuing mastery and fulfillment in life. This group is filled with individuals looking to take full control over their strength, and it's the perfect space to explore new ideas and to share your journey. And you'll also get exclusive access to these Strength Connection Mastery Seminars. It's a deep dive into the physical, mental, and spiritual training that you can begin using immediately. So do not wait, go now. Seriously, go. All right, much love to you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.